Greetings. My name's Ben Reapy, and I'm happy to be here with you today to talk about a parent training called Positive Solutions for Families. If you've done any pyramid model work in the past, it's a social emotional framework to think about how to support children in developing social skills. This is a parent training that they have that goes along with that, and it's located online and it's free and it's got lots of resources. So even if you weren't wanting to do the whole training, um, it's got lots of things that you can do that you can share with families to support them um, in a really challenging time. There's lots of researchers noting the extra challenges that families have been facing the last couple of years, um, and the extra stressors and how that's impacting the students that we're working with. So uh, why not have a training in your pocket that can support families um, to deal with those exact same challenges that they have at home, and think of ways of developing routines, developing expectations that help their children to map out when disruptions happen in their days and lives, um, and address those things head on in an effective and uh, culturally responsive way. Because one of the things about Positive Solutions for Families is it's not telling families what to do or what to say, but it helps them think about what matches their own needs and culture, and they can use their information to develop the things that'll make their lives easier for their children. So um, it's free, it's online, and it can be used in both in person, and also it has been used in several states as a virtual training. One of the things that people have been noticing is that a lot of families are feeling disconnected from other families. And so what are ways that we can do to help get people together, whether it's together or online together? And so we're going to cover three things in today's presentation, and I hope you enjoy it. We've got content, the training overview content. Sorry, I can't put words together. Oh, overview of the content. There are a couple of examples. I picked a few strategies. It was really hard. I've had to re-record this because I initially had like way too many strategies. So I tried to narrow it down to just a couple of my very, very favorites that I couldn't um, end this conference without sharing a couple of examples that are in there that are really amazing, and just give you a link at the end to the where you can find these materials and download them. So Positive Solutions for Families overview. So we're going to go over kind of the structure of the Positive Solutions for Families, and also kind of describe like why are we talking about these things. So these are the areas that that this training covers, and the what are some of the skills that we're helping our children walk away from. And I'm going to give you guys a moment looking over these: feeling confident, developing strong relationships, coping with strong emotions, identifying and expressing your feelings in an appropriate way, making friends, following directions, and persist when tasks are hard. So take a minute and think about your top three reasons for one, needing these skills to be taught or learned by children in a preschool setting. I'm going to give you a couple of moments. Write down what your top three reasons are, and we'll see if they make the list. What are the top three reasons that you want children to know how to make friends, have emotional literacy, persist when tasks are hard? What are the top three reasons? We'll pause here. Okay. Welcome back. Now that you have written down a couple of ideas around what are the positive outcomes associated with children having social skills, let's look at just a couple of the um, things that science have found over the last couple of decades. Of they've studied this, and they've seen that children who have those skills have a more likely the following outcomes. Number one, behind door number one. So if you get 3 of these, pat yourself on the back, give yourself a high five or a hug, kiss your brain, you've done well. Self-confidence. Kids are more likely to be on the track to gain more self-confidence. Maintained friendships, school success, academic success. The reason there has been a push over the last 20 years, one of the reasons is that children who are able to be emotionally in control themselves do better in school. They're less likely to become a teen parent, and they're less likely to go to jail. Imagine if Pfizer could identify a drug that would make those two last things happen. You bet your bottom dollar people would be investing in it. More likely to maintain long-term relationships and more likely to live longer. Pretty impactful. So that's one of the reasons this presentation has been developed. How do we help our children learn to think about their emotions, learn how to control their emotions, because it's important, it's meaningful for families, and especially in times when things are challenging, these are skills that kids need support learning. One of the sessions that the previous Positive Solutions for Families did not have, but has been embedded into the new version, is around the power of routines. If anything, around disruption has been taught to us over, not being able to take our children to school, trying to teach children to do things at home, which is a disruption to the original sort of mapping out of school day, possibly. Is that the power of routines is an opportunity for families to think carefully about what is it that's happening on during the day, and when are chances for me to teach the things that I want my children to learn, or how can I make it more predictable so that children are less likely to exhibit challenging behavior because they know what's coming up, they get it. And we can embed some fun stuff in there that the child likes meaningfully, purposefully, so that children do better. So if you look at these, you can also kind of see the structure of the pyramid model. So pyramid model is based on that medical model of universal practices, some practices that they address minor challenges, and then more intensive work. So it starts at the beginning, making a connection. That's all about how do you build relationships? How do you explain your child the expectations of what they need and keeping positive? Behavior has meaning. We just kind of talk about what children are communicating through their behavior. We talk about ways of developing routines that work for your family, that are things that your family are already doing, but maybe an opportunity to use that to plug in the opportunity for teaching for children. Mapping out for families, what are the best ways of teaching children? What are the best ways of providing opportunities to practice, when to teach and when not to teach. And then the last two are on that more higher tier. You've got your child is expressing themselves in a way that is not matching what you're hoping to see. So how do you respond to that and teach them new things with purpose? And how do you put together a plan if needed? Okay, so the materials inside of the Positive Solutions handbook are the following. There's a facilitator's guide. There are scripts for facilitators who are doing the training. There are PowerPoints. There's a family handbook which families can map out their plan for themselves, and resources that families can use, articles, etc. Um, Families are in different places in terms of that, so having as many different things to meet their needs as possible is good. And then there's a family routine guide which really maps out for families. Um, if there's a challenge during a routine, this might be why, and here are some things we can do to teach the child and reinforce the child in the new use of materials. So facilitator's guide. This is broken down into pieces. And what's valuable about the facilitator's guide is it has examples of how to recruit families. It has all of the, like, each session is broken down into like what facilitator materials do you need, what family materials might you have printed out. And so whether or not you're doing it in person or virtually, you might have a list of things like, okay, here are links that I email to the families if it's virtual, or here are the things I want to print off and have at the center where I'm presenting at, ready to go. So it kind of makes that, it organizes, it helps organize the training to make it easier uh, for you. There's also facilitator scripts. They start off with just a clear breakdown of, like, what are the learning objectives, what's the agenda, approximate agenda, what are family materials and facilitator materials for each session. And it also is going to provide you a whole list of information about each session. So it's going to have slides, possibly what you say, and facilitator notes. So if, for example, there's a discussion around a specific topic, it gives ideas of how you might facilitate that discussion. The facilitator script also has icons throughout the course of it, just to help you understand what's going on here. So there's chart paper, this is the first one, role play, apply it and try it. There's a discussion section, there's a family handbook section, and then small group activities. So it lets you know what's coming up with these little handy icons. So if you're going through the training, you're not, obviously you're not reading the script, but it's also nice to kind of like have that ready so you can be like, oh, I see that we're going to do the apply it and try it here, that kind of thing. In each of the sessions, there are different kinds of activities that we use, and here's just a couple that you're trying to keep the families engaged. It's not just a PowerPoint with the facilitator saying, here's what you need to know about this, here's what you need to know about that. There's lots of chances for families to engage and go into conversations with each other. There's self-reflection, there's brainstorming where people just kind of pop off ideas without being judged, just like like the actual brainstorming kind of piece. Facilitated group discussion as a large group we're talking about a new concept. There's opportunities to role play. And later I'm going to give an example from one of the people that's done this in the past about how they've handled role play in virtual settings. There's planning in the family handbook. And there's apply it and try it, things to do at home. So the PowerPoints from the previous version have been reduced in the number of examples, the number of examples written on the page. Those have been placed mostly into the facilitator scripts so that there's less images, but we're trying to make it clear about what we're showing. So there's more photo examples of materials, and also it sort of follows a routine based on the material, based on a similar routine throughout the session. So there's going to be an agenda slide, there's going to be review of the apply it and try it, how'd that go for you. There's going to be affirmations, praising families for the work they've done this last week. There's going to be chances to learn about the different strategies, practice them, and then make a plan for next time. So that's kind of the basic formula for each of the sessions. There's a little bit of tweaking here and there, but that's basically it. So it's starting off again with an agenda slide, and then continuing with consistent presentation. The agenda has a similar picture and format. Okay. There's a chance for families to think very carefully about a new strategy. So redirection, for example, they go over some of the ideas, and before the families start planning, there's a chance for them to talk about it and practice the skills. So redirection, they learn about what redirection is, and then they get a chance to think about some examples of how you might redirect a child. And then they go into apply it and try it, and they map out how they might do it. There's lots of family materials throughout the sessions that families can look at for more detailed examples. And then they go into their family handbook and they try to map these things out. So the family handbook is meant to be used during the sessions as a brainstorming and planning opportunity. It's not intended, right? It's not intended just to be pencil or paper. However, the families want to think about it, if they want to have discussions, etc. It's fine. But the idea is that they take the ideas they've been learning about, think about how they might use them, and then add it to their take home family handbook, or just have a plan in their mind. There's also the family routine guide in the materials. The family routine guide, again, breaks it down onto kind of a, why do I think this would be, if you're talking to a teacher, it would be like, what's the function of the behavior? Why do you think this is happening? The child is having trouble during teeth or hair, and here the function is in that blue box. It says your child does not like being touched. Okay, so if that's the reason they're trying to get away from being touched, right? Here are some prevention strategies. Here's how I might respond if the child is acting frustrated about being touched, right? Validating their feelings, offering choices, etc. So there's play a game with them. There's ways of responding differently, because if we just raise our voice and make a big deal about things, it's just more likely that they're going to keep doing that. They're not getting their communicative needs met, so they'll keep doing what works because it works. If it didn't work, they would stop doing it. And then opportunities for new things to teach them. Okay. Families can use that in this last session around making a plan. And it breaks it down into those three pieces: prevent, teach, and reinforce. What are the prevention strategies that I do in advance? Like, I let my kid know we're about to brush our teeth, or I give my kid 5 minutes and then we're going to brush our teeth. I say, hey, I'm going to brush my teeth with you, let's go. And then that's the preventative strategy. How do I respond if challenging behavior occurs? And then what are the things that I'm going to teach? And again, teaching it doesn't occur during the challenge, it occurs at a different time. So that's just the breakdown of the session itself. Let's think about, let's talk about a couple of examples from feedback that facilitators across the country, they've used the new version. It's been out for about a year. So there's folks in Tennessee, in New Jersey, there's folks in Colorado, there's folks in lots of different states that have worked on this presentation for families and worked with families. And here's just a couple of the things that those folks have shared with the NCPMI, the pyramid model and innovations team. What are some of the things they've said? So one, they noted that having those scripts was very helpful in terms of organizing their thoughts. That it was real. The facilitator guy was great in terms of like getting ready for the presentation itself. Oop, sorry. Oh, I moved back to slide. Sorry, my mouse is being very sensitive right now. One person said they didn't feel like there were any materials missing. They felt they were very helpful, and it was important to take time to explore the materials before presenting. Obviously, families are open to trying the strategies each week. For example, providing positive encouragement and feedback, creating the scripted story, and implementing the cozy corner. Two families around implementing house rules did it right away and had really positive impacts. They noted that the families worked really hard to model the expectations for their children, and it had this really big impact on the kids. The kids really loved that their moms and dads, their family members were all, following the expectations, right? And that made it easier for them to follow them as well, for the children. Another facilitator appreciated the extended session. The previous version was about an hour to 90 minutes. These are more like 90 minutes to 2 hours. The longer time seemed to help with family things. And this last presenter really loved the materials. Was easy to access, family friendly, and the script was easy to follow. Another example that that goes back to the role play in a virtual setting. Two of the presenters that we talked to said that they had actually spoken with each other in advance, and they would record a role play on like a video, and they would play that during the virtual presentation. You could also do that in person, and then that way there was less awkwardness. Apparently, for some folks, the virtual Zoom or Teams or whatever platform you're using, it was hard to get people to role play because people were kind of like talking on top of each other. It didn't seem to flow very well, and people were less likely to do it. But they really liked watching the video of the role play and it going. And then the presenters also said it also kind of like reduce their stress because they recorded it beforehand. And when they recorded it beforehand, it meant that if they botched it, they could just re-record the video. And now they have that recording and they can play it at all sorts of presentations in the future. So the role plays are really great for folks, a really great chance to practice for folks. Sometimes it's kind of nice to have a recorded version if you feel like that. But it was just extra tricky with the added virtual component when they did it. Maybe families were just a little less comfortable, but it was just I thought that was a really cool tip for folks to try. Okay, we have officially ended our first section of the presentation. If you are so inclined, please take a minute to pause and to stretch, to do some midline crossing, rubbing your ears. I've got headphones on, so that doesn't help. Relaxation break. Take care of your needs, do a bio break, whatever. But I would encourage you to pause it for a second. Take a couple minutes to grab your cup of coffee, your next version of caffeinated beverage, and we will see you back here in just a sec. Modeling. Oh, caffeine and diet beverages are so delicious. All right, coming back. Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk about some of Ben's favorite strategies. So I had a huge list. Remember I said I had to pare it down. I had a huge list of different my top favorite strategies. So here's a is just a list of what that looked like, but I've cut it down to four. I was trying to make it down to three, but I only made it to four before I decided, all right, but that's as far as I'm going to get in terms of paring it down. Small moments often. I've heard this a bunch of different times in the last couple of years. I've also heard it, yeah, if you've listened to any of the social psychologists over the last 50 years or whatever, there's lots of folks that kind of found this to be a valuable use of time, whether it's Gottman in relationship work, whether it's a Bronfenbrenner, whatever it's whoever it is. There's lots of folks that are out there, but this is one that I think is sticks with me because um, whether you're talking about improving your teaching practices, whether you're talking about improving your relationships with other adults, whether you're talking about supporting your children, this is something that you can improve very quickly, and um, it's not there's not a lot of effort, which is important during times when people are stressed out. There's not a lot of effort that needs to happen here. It's saying, all right, I'm going to take small moments to connect with my child often. And this doesn't mean I'm taking you to Disneyland. It means you're going to be my helper and help me with the dishes. Something we were doing anyway. We're going to fold the towels and we're going to be silly about it. We're going to sit together and read for 5 minutes. We're going to read the next chapter of this book we have together. We're going to sing this favorite song that we have in the car as we drive to school. It's a chance to be silly if you're a silly person. It's a chance to be serious and talk about something that's meaningful if you're a serious person, but finding things that your child likes, that you like, and connect them together in a happy small moment. And making sure that you plug a few of those into each day at different times. You got a challenging time a day, add a small moment into that day. Okay. It's about building positive time and attention together. Joint attention on the same thing. We're having fun together. Life can get busy, but you can still do this. You can still say, you're going to help me put these forks on the table, and we're going to do it together. We're going to set the table together. And then we talk about how awesome we are and how organized we are. There's ways of doing that. There's lots of ways of making playful moments. You don't have to do, it doesn't have to be hours and hours or thousands and thousands of dollars. It can be little things, but just making sure you're doing them often. The more you can do to build those memories together, the more impactful your parenting will be, and the happier you'll be as a family. So small moments often, small things often. That's the first of my favorite of the tips that are in here. The second one, and this is the news section, is that components of a successful routine. So you have a clear start and a clear finish to a routine, whether it's brushing your teeth, whether it's getting ready for bed, whether it's even play times. Like, if there's a time of day when the children are typically playing together, is there a clear start and is there a clear finish, AKA putting the things away, that kind of thing. So there's a clear beginning, there's a clear middle. Your child is taught the steps of the routines. So we say, hey, you guys love to play in the playroom. We love it when we have, you wouldn't say this, 4 minutes of blessed silent, like just a minute to mom and dad time or whatever. But teach your child the steps of the routine, and so that they know what's coming up. Follow the steps of the routine consistently. When change happens, you prepare your child ahead of time. So um, if we were going to have outside playtime, and we always have outside playtime at 3 o'clock or whatever, and suddenly there's a rainstorm and it's not, outside time is no longer an option, it sounds like, well, that's going to make things impossible. But if you've had clear routines and you teach your child, oh, it's that rainy day, we're going to do something else instead, your child's able to get over it because there's other clear routines. There's other cool things that they like to do. Um, it's not easy when your routines are disrupted. See the last 3 years, but it um, it is easier if you have another routine that you can get into, and if you acknowledge that it's tricky in advance. Developing and using visuals is very helpful if a routine is tricky, um, and provide positive feedback and encouragement. So uh, helping families to think about those. I like that it's based on the family's interests. It's based on it's an opportunity to embed child interests, but it's not telling them what the routine should look like. It's them helping their children to understand why we're doing these things. That makes it great. This next one was in the previous version, and I'm sure if you've done any social emotional teaching, you may have seen this already. So we've got this like green areas of this bell curve are areas when the children are calm and when they're listening and they're in those higher thinking sections of their mind, right? They're kind of they're doing well in terms of like learning. And then the red section is when they're sort of like either dysregulated, possibly fight flighty, upset, very upset, right? And we all know that at the very top, when you are blowing up, is an impossible time to meaningfully, or almost impossible time to me. You're past the stress point of being able to pick up new information and take it away with you. So if you want to go back to middle school, and imagine a breakup happens, or imagine you just found out that your 6-month crush is not interested in you, or as the new girlfriend or boyfriend or new significant other, and you're like, oh no, and now it's algebra time, right? So you're not picking up algebra because you're very upset and you're seeing something that you don't want to see, and it's not the time to learn new things. When you're calm, when you're collected, when you're feeling well is a good time. And here's they've kind of updated this just a little bit. So those are the green arrows. Great time to teach. Great time to learn new skills, right? Especially social skills. Okay. So you practice at those times. Those are times to practice the skill. If you start to get a little bit, you're starting to feel a little bit dysregulated, maybe a child is in preschool or in at home, the sibling is doing that thing that they do to tee off their other sibling. They say something that upsets them. They grab their favorite dinosaur, and the preschooler is like, why? The 3 to 5 year old is like, why did you take? That's a place where you might prompt them and say, hey, here's where we can use our words, right? But at the very top, when they are flipping out, when they are upset, that is not a time to try to teach or practice the new skill. They're not going to practice it. AKA, you're not going to get them to say, it's not a good time to try to ask them to say, I want my dinosaur. Say, I want my dinosaur. They're crying. Not the opportunity to say that. Not, don't drag yourself out through that. That's just going to make the upset happen longer. So just help everybody de-escalate, and then later you can practice it again. But later we can practice that new skill. That didn't really work out. Let's practice saying, I want my dinosaur. Okay, so love the slide. I love the updated language around prompting. And I love that concept. I love for folks to be like, oh, that's why this isn't being taught. This is because people might think, a lot of adults think, I tried to teach him, he was freaking out, and I was teaching him, and it's like, that's not, it wasn't going in, it wasn't getting absorbed. Um, and this is my last favorite um, slide of the day. Um, when people always wonder about this, like when the volcano is happening or when the child is having using this challenging behavior, the most effective, the most effective, if it's not dangerous, strategy is to ignore stuff. So if a child is doing something that is um, annoying, an adult, and ignoring is the fastest way of getting rid of a behavior. But if you've got to, because something's unsafe or something is, um, you feel it needs to be addressed, less is usually best. Less is best. Many times people feel the need because of the way we've been raised or because of a childhood traumatic experience, that we need to raise our voices and make something really big, really to really get the point across. Less is usually better in terms of changing the behavior. That's not how we talk to our brother. Low, get it. She's down on the child's level. She's like, that, yeah, that didn't work. De-escalate. That's the key. But this is a great strategy. There is a whole, those last two sessions get into how to make a plan, how to prevent, teach, and reinforce new strategies. But this is a nice one that I think kind of goes under the radar sometimes. People kind of, they keep doing the big responses and they're not effective. So let's stop all that and let's try something else. Okay. Now, last section, where do I find these materials? Well, NCPMI has a website, challenging behavior. And if you go there, you will find lots of materials. Here's how you get to the resources of the Positive Solutions for Families, though. You click on the website, there's a resource tab. You click on the resource tab. You type Positive Solutions into the search box. You click Positive Solutions for Families, sessions 1 to 5. If you are providing the training in Espanol, click on Positive Solutions for Families, sessions 1 through 5, 1 through 7, through 1 through 7 in Spanish. There are little parentheses in Spanish. Lots of the materials that are located throughout the resource library tab are in lots of different languages now. There's a lot of family materials that are in Arabic, that are in Spanish, that are in lots of Hmong. There's lots of different languages that are now, the materials are being presented. This whole training has been translated into English and Spanish. Fortunately, not in other languages yet, but there's lots of other resources that are out there that are available in the home languages, of course, is useful. There is also a family engagement tab in the under implementation, and it has lots more resources for families to look at, to use. So if you were looking at this presentation as a where's the goods, looking for great resources, that's where you could find them. And finally, there is this is I think a URL code that you can get materials from. So there is the listed how I download the zip file. If you can type all that into your box, and that's another way of getting it. Just go straight. That's the straight place. But I wanted to thank everybody for your time today. I want to thank you for the work that you do with children and families. I know that I know that it's been an interesting time. There's a lot of teacher turnover. There's a lot of challenges out there, and so I think having great materials that you can use to like map out what you want and then present is helpful. So I'm hoping that you are, if you're interested in this, that you did take the time. You're also welcome to reach out to me, and my information is, um, well, let's put it in someplace. My information is here. benjamin.reapy@du.edu. So if you have questions about any resources associated with Positive Solutions, you're welcome to contact me. Um, and also know that on NCPMI, they have occasional webinars. There's actually one later in August of some of those folks from Tennessee and New Jersey, and they're gonna share information about Positive Solution for Families and their work using it and some of the things that went well and some of the thoughts that they have about it. So that's another opportunity for you to pick up stuff and learn and go. Um, I know virtual situations are strange, so I wish we could have had a conversation in person, but I'm very happy to be able to reach folks this way as well. So thank you guys for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Thanks.